You're listening to Inside the Notes. I'm your host, Erica Block. Here we have the opportunity to listen to the stories that connect our musical family tree. First-hand accounts of performances, musicians, and mentors that shape the way we listen, learn, and teach. On today's episode, we are chatting with Ken Grant, longtime clarinet pedagogue at the Eastman School of Music. Ken is here in Bellingham teaching at the Marrowstone Music Festival. The faculty quintet performed Barber's Summer Music last night, and Ken made it sound so easy. Do you remember the first time you performed that piece?
Yes. Our quintet left Eastman and started in Columbus, Ohio. That was our first job. We got hired actually as a quintet. We ended up playing in the orchestra. And of course, Columbus was Ohio State football. And we played it outside under a willow tree at the old capital of Ohio, Chillicothe, and I think we were all about 22 years old, and I remember being completely scared out of my mind. Yeah, because I never did it at Eastman. I never had played it. I'd looked at the part, and I'd heard many really good quintets play it, but it was one of those pieces that just, you know, and I was anxious this week. I mean, we put it together very quickly, but everyone in the group had played it, of course. But it was just, it's just one of those pieces.
It's a little pricklier than it sounds.
Yeah. You know, and Francine, our bassoonist, had a great, she said, it's such a great piece that even if you make a mistake, it still sounds good. You know, it's like, but it's just so, Barber was, you know, probably, arguably, he lived in the shadow of Bernstein and some other people, but his music is, we're recording his first symphony next year, and it's just beautifully written, straight through, and not played very often. And of course, summer of 1915, I think, Knoxville. Oh my God.
An incredible piece.
Yes. I mean, it just, Capricorn Concerto for trumpet and English horn, just goes on and on. But he was, I guess, writing a sonata for clarinet. My senior year, I ran into a clarinetist from Curtis, Stuart Newbold, and he actually knew Barber, and but he passed away. It's not a good thing to write for clarinet.
No, I know.
I mean,
we get the best ofs and the last ofs.
I mean, arguably, there's no other wind instrument that has our chamber music.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's true.
I remember Marcellus when I was trying to get lessons, which I didn't pursue hard enough. When I got to Columbus in '73, that was the year he played his last recording with Cleveland, the Prokofiev, Romeo and Juliet.
Wow.
And which was phenomenal. And he got in his car with his wife and drove to Northwestern because of his diabetic retinopathy. Pressure of playing would have caused him to probably accelerate his blindness faster.
Wow,
and
I did not know that.
And I wrote him, he sent me a beautiful letter. I want to come to Chicago, and he suggested times. And of course, I was playing and busy, but I should have gone to Chicago that summer, slapped hamburgers, lived at the Y, and taken lessons. You know, to have not taken advantage of that pedagogy. And Hasty, of course, was phenomenal. I mean, he taught you everything you needed to know structurally about the clarinet. Yeah, I mean, we did do a lot of scales. I did a lot. He would always ask you if you had your scales, and then he would ask you a scale, and you couldn't do it then.
Then it was scale time.
Yeah, but Schifrin said Gigliotti, he practiced scales 3 hours a day at Curtis. You know, he said, you know, yeah. But Hasty was etude. He'd just look over his glasses and etude, you know. And you had to perform for the first 15 minutes, and if it wasn't going well, he wouldn't say a thing. Just go back, you know. And then sometimes when it was really, he'd come over and say, do you have anything else to play?
Wow.
But there was an expectation.
Yeah.
And the greatest story was Peter and the Wolf. I was bragging all week in dining hall how I was going to just go in and blow Mr. Hasty against the wall with Peter and the Wolf. So I came in with a McGinnis excerpt book with wrong notes, you know,
oh, Lord.
Which he had to do for copyright reasons,
Yeah.
I'm sure. And I had done a little bit of it in high school, but you know, you think you're
ready to rock,
right?
Yeah.
And so the lesson was going great, and I said, I'm gonna get out of here, you know. I mean, but everyone all week we're coming into the lessons. Grant's coming in, and he's gonna blow you away with the Peter and the Wolf. So etude went well. I got through some excerpts, Beethoven excerpts we started with, Said, well, do you have anything else? I said, no. I said, so he started egging me on. He says, you sure you don't have anything else? I said, well, I've been working on Peter Love. He says, good, let's hear it. Of course, it was downhill
fast.
Yeah, the yelling and wrong notes and oh gosh. And it was funny because I actually in high school, Jim Pine said, well, I always play the cadenza on B flat. And when I first got to Columbus, I played the first time I did it. Well, they recorded it for a television program, and of course I nailed it the first time, and some bass player came in wrong or something. It was like. So we had to do it again. And the high F, was a little flat. But actually, when I got back to Rochester, I relearned it on A. And I think maybe the riffs at the end were a little easier on B flat. But I did it for probation. I had to do it 10 mornings in a row in the schools. Yeah, we went out.
For probation for what?
For Rochester. During my first year, they made me play it like.
Goodness.
I said to the operator, if I play it again this year, I'm gonna take the tires off your car.
Yeah.
But it never got easy. I mean, it's like I did Le Cocteau once, and I had heard Marcellus's live recording of Le Cocteau, which was just like butter. It's like putting butter on a bagel. It was, and I did it 3 times with Julius Riddell, and one night I came close to it being perfectly even. The other 2 nights there were little beep, little bumps, Yep. Oh, it's Hasty did that, he said, with George Zell on tour 17 nights in a row.
Wow.
Le Cocteau. And
That's
Hasty
incredible.
he said, he had me in the dressing room every night. And I said, well, Mr. Hasty, why was that? He said, because I wasn't playing it well. Those guys were just so crusty.
Yeah. Ruthless.
His one time, he said in Pittsburgh Symphony, he said the E flat player, needed a little longer vacation and whatever. And he said, "Would you play E flat this week?" And he said, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it." So the conductor, after the second rehearsal, said, "Are you the regular E flat clarinetist?" And he says, "Yeah, that's me." Well, I tell you. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Mariano, the great flute professor at Eastman, used to say, "Oh, that Stan, he has a short fuse." But there was an expectation. And when his retire, after 25 years, his students got a huge party together, and first thing he said was, I can't remember the order, but this is the first time I've apologized. It's the last time I've apologized, and it's the only time. I'm sorry I yelled at you. Sustained applause. He just knew what to say simply, and in fact, a good lesson. I mean, I was happy if I was out of there in 40 minutes. I mean, it was so intense, and what he had to say, he picked on certain things, but Hasty hardly played a note for me. And that was the secret of his teaching, because his students all played the clarinet well, but they all...
Their own way.
Yeah, that's right. They clipped, they released, they phrased, they had good pitch, they voiced. But when you went and heard Poulenc, you could hear it a whole week in a row, and everyone would be different. There was no cloning at all. And that is what I try to do, is I'm going to, pick up my instrument occasionally, and I'll play a duet to see if they're hearing intervals. A lot of times I have the next student come in. If the person hasn't practiced, that's in there. Mm-hmm. I have the next student come in and I say, listen to the etude.
That's good.
Yeah. And what do you think of this?
And will you be practicing this week?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I keep notebooks, and I write all this, and it's really great to know that when they leave, the notebook is there for 4 days before they come back and realize they don't have it. But Bonad used to, when he taught, I guess there was a screen, and you'd come in and sit and wait, and you'd hear the end of the last person's lesson. So, embarrassment, Well, master classes are... Yeah. We never had those. We never had... Hasty said it was wrong, but no pianist did, but we never did that. I'm here playing in this business talking to you today because my first teacher was that kind of a teacher. Amazing. He didn't play in an orchestra, Don Mattia. He was taught in the Sweet Home School District I grew up in. And I was so lucky I went to that school because he was my private teacher after 2 lessons. But he took me through Perez scales, the whole Longinus series.
Wow.
I mean, Albert. When I went to Pine in high school, I had to develop a voice. I mean, Pine got me to play out and sing, and Pine was but Mattia he gave me a foundation. Mm-hmm. Proper embouchure, I puff my cheeks, which I still do today. Mm-hmm. But he knew all the right things. He had a great teacher, Dr. Willett, who taught at Fredonia University, who I went to high school camp and studied with. He then became a conductor, and he actually, I didn't know at the time, but did his doctorate with Hasty. Willett did.
Wow.
So Mattia was great, and of course it was sad to leave him, go to Pine, but and then Jim gave me a tremendous. He just was a really enthusiast about playing, which was different than Hasty. Of course, I would drive Hasty crazy because I'd go home and I'd come back with a new mouthpiece, because Pine would be, because he cut a Casper in half and to see what the boards. Yeah. So he started with actually Sumner, Sumner, not Selmer, but Sumner. Selmer is what I started with when I was a kid. It was so sharp. So sharp. But that was my ears. That wasn't the mouthpiece. I just didn't pull out enough. That was no fault of the Selmer mouthpiece. And the oval seal, that was on the. But so Pine started with that, and then he got Sumner blanks and refaced it, and that was my first changed mouthpiece from the Sumner. And Hasty played a Sumner with about a 103 tip, not too open, and he never played Caspers. I don't think. But all the pictures of Hasty were with crystal mouthpieces. Yeah. Till he came to Rochester.
Right.
And Bill Ossick, who was his great colleague at Eastman, played crystal all his life. And Marcellus said in an '88 clarinet magazine, he did the Polivetzian and the Capriccio. That was on a crystal mouthpiece.
Wow.
Yeah. And the story goes from Marcellus' student that he was sitting in an airport and Zell came up behind him and said, "You really don't want to play that mouthpiece, do you?" But it was psychological. Yeah, I guess not. Yeah. But that's an amazing sound on that. And he played a crystal. So, of course, the most famous story is when Marcellus, when he got the Cleveland job, I believe he was second to Janusa in Baltimore. Something like that.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
And he dropped his mouthpiece in Wolf Trap in the floor, and he didn't know what to do. He was playing on the Bonad Melior mouthpiece. Mm-hmm. And he went to Anthony Gigliotti, and he reached in his case and gave him a spare Casper, and that's how he got into Caspers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Trial by fire.
Isn't that incredible?
It is incredible.
And then he had, one of my favorite recordings was the Schubert Octet they did with triple strings.
Yes.
Which you've heard.
I love that recording.
And that was when he said, I played my 11 Casper, a little closer mouthpiece. But the most amazing thing that never happens is Zell called him at his house that night after and said, "I want to tell you this is one of the greatest things I've ever done in my career."
Wow. Doing
this. And we as clarinet players know, we listened to it and it was amazing, and it's live.
Yeah.
And Marcellus said, "Oh, well, thank you. I've never played the piece before, and then he said, "What?" But it is. I mean, someday I would love to do that with triple strings because I've played it, obviously, as you've done it. Yeah. It's gorgeous. Wow. Yeah, but Mattia, then I went to Pine, and then Hasty, and then I was blessed. When I got to Columbus, Dave Schifrin came in, as I mentioned.
Yes.
And I went up and heard him, and it was great. Our principal flute was always studying with Maurice Sharp. Randy Hester was in our quintet. But as I said, I should have gotten together with him and listened to him, talk about how he did things. And he was effortless, as we talked about last night. Like you heard him play the Brahms Quartet, which I've done, and he just, like Larry Combs, just relaxed.
Yeah.
Julie DeRoche always said when I sat next to Larry in the orchestra, he just never rushed. It was just...
Yeah, there's so much trusting in it, and just time and patience for color and sound and extreme dynamics.
That's right.
Yeah.
Extreme in dynamics. That's the thing our instrument can do that nobody can touch. The lack of vibrato and the dolcissimo. Hasty used to use that word, dolcissimo. Really like the Pines of Rome.
Absolutely.
To the point where even if the note is late, it's soft.
Exactly.
I don't think I've ever played the second D, the con mi echo, which everyone, they don't see in the Pines, but the second solo is supposed to be even softer.
Right.
And to risk everything going for that.
Yes.
It's very exciting to talk. I've done a lot of interviews, but it's nice when you talk to somebody who knows your instrument intimately. I remember Jack Snavely interviewed Harold Wright in a clarinet magazine many, many years ago, and Harold Wright came across being pretty humorous about, they dug the crap out of holes.
They just
share,
Yeah, a rawness.
Yeah. I remember I called him. Somebody snuck his phone number out of a book back at Tanglewood, and I wanted to get lessons with him so bad because my buddy Dan Lukens played principal in the Coast Guard band for like 25 years, 20 years I think. Beautiful clarinet player, just immaculate hands. But he went to New England after Eastman to study with Harold Wright. And I was always, what did he say? And he said, not too much, but, one time Dan said, well, how do you not leak air? And Harold Wright said, well, you just blow it into the clarinet,
Exactly. Incredible simplicity.
Yeah. And he would say the quintet would rehearse. Dorio Dwyer was always beating up Harold Wright. And he would say nothing. He just, man.
Okay.
And they said at his audition, Leinsdorf, will anybody be able to hear him?
That's so true, because it's such an intimate, sound.
But years later, I got to work with the great, Silverstein. Joseph Silverstein was a great concertmaster.
Yeah.
Well, was there probably when,
Yep.
And he said Harold Wright was the finest musician in the Boston Symphony on any instrument. He said, and Ozawa said in his obituary, he died, I think, at Tanglewood.
Yeah.
I never knew quite what he was going to do, but it was always spectacular.
Absolutely.
And that's what you're talking. Ending a note and starting a note. It was the Marlborough recordings, the famous The Shepherd on the Rock that he did early with, what was it, Rudolf Zirkin, and then later with Peter Zirkin, his son, after the end. And the gal, Valenti, was a very good friend of Rita Shane's, who taught next door to me. God rest her soul, she died of cancer. She was the queen of the night for years at the Met. And Valenti came to Eastman. The first thing I said to her, that I just have to tell you that.
Yeah.
I listened to it all the time. It was just that.
Absolutely.
That articulation and intimacy. And Peter Hadcock, who of course played E-flat, and he was a character, wrote that great book. He said, Harold Wright never had a fundamental in his sound. Because, he didn't say attributed to his double lip, but his voicing was always phenomenal. Frank Cohen was an amazing. I made the finals for the first audition I took after studying with him, and Frank was amazing, musical. Like I took a lesson, he said, well, what, you sound fine. I was in Columbus, and he said, well, I'd like to make the second round in an audition. He said, well, in that case, it sucks. So why don't you do this? I'm not charging you today. Why don't you do this, and this, and then come back in 2 weeks?
Awesome.
Yeah.
But just like you said, do you want a compliment or do you want to know what the story is?
And Mr. Out of the Box, like he'd be refacing his mouthpiece for the concert, and
Oh my gosh.
And he's But when he played in Baltimore, when you listen to his music for Prague and stuff, I mean, he played Casper's Made His Own Reeds. And I was the one that took him to Pine, because I played at a class at a house. He said, oh, that's nice. He said, what is it? We went up to Pine, and then I took him down the dark path. It was so hard. Because Pine would say to me, you're never going to play dark enough for Frank. Never. Because he got into but Frank would say to me, like I remember I played Petrushka so loud in Indianapolis, and somebody behind the committee said, yeah. Which means pack it up, baby. Oh my gosh.
Oh wow.
But I took LA the next time I got it, and I made it. I just got married, and we went through excerpt. Frank would sit over in the corner and just in the studio, so I'd just take notes. Yeah, well, if that's, I mean, are you convinced that that's the way you want to play it? I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I guess if that's what you feel, you know, he would just challenge you to think about what you were doing. And I made the finals. And I remember it was, what a crowd. Howard Klug, John James, all these people, there were 10 of us that went in, that made it past the cattle call. And of course, the invited finalists were David Schifrin, Lauren Levy, who got the job. Maybe that was the only one David lost. And then I can't remember. Oh, John Bruchet is the only one that made it out because he was only bass. Group. Yeah. And John Bruchet, I when I came out and he went in, I listened to his entire Through the Door. It was incredible. He said, I squeaked once. I said, I don't think that'll affect.
I don't think they'll mind.
But I played Daphnis. And Michelle Zukovsky was sitting at the proctor table, and she was guiding me through the stuff. And Giolini was sitting on the couch with his hat on, you know. So I mean, I was in the Dorothy Chandler in this huge room. And so I'm playing, I'm just really cranking Daphnis. It's just really, and Giolini says, very nice. This is maybe a little too fancy for my orchestra. But Frank got me to, you know, play.
Do it.
I remember playing Scheherazade like 10 times, and I walked out in the preliminaries, and I said, I probably didn't. He says, no, you probably made the finals because they wanted to see if you could be flexible. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. But, you know, any audition you take, you can win one, go the next day, and get nothing.
Yeah, and I think that's the hardest thing, and the most important thing to remember is it's just focus on this one. Don't worry about the last one or the next one, because it really is so different.
You take, 45, make the finals, and 5, win 3. I mean, that's a terrible average.
Yeah.
But then there's David Schifrin and those people that Zumbudu. But you're right. I think relaxation, doing it, but not, remember the deodorant commercial? Don't see you sweat.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
That's the thing that always impressed me about Crowley, and they did it, but they didn't make a big deal about it. Larry Combs, when he did classes, he says, he said, well, the technique's important, rhythm, very important, but you know, the ear is the most important thing. Bill Blaney, who I was mentioning his name, he's lives in Seattle. His wife's a librarian at Seattle Symphony. I got to know him. We had him to Eastman to do a presentation one summer to the, Robert did the clarinet choir and the young kids. Bill said, Mr. Janusa, when he was studying with Iggy, as they used to call him, he said, you didn't put this stuff on recordings. It's not very. So he ran home and got a tape recorder, and Janusa play all these excerpts for him in Baltimore.
Oh, my goodness.
And he played these at the class. It was incredible. And Janusa had an amazing sound. Zell, actually, I think the way it went, he wanted him to be his principal in Cleveland. But Janusa said, nah, but there's this young guy, Bob Marcellus, that's sitting next to me, and I think he might be somebody you're...
Isn't that interesting?
That was an amazing, I guess, Hasty and Juliet. There were a lot of people that took that audition. But Marcellus says, I came off a national tour, and then I came in, you know.
I was all warmed up.
Yeah, he was, I remember I heard him live once. He came to the Eastman Theater at the end of a Cleveland tour. They did Firebird. And Zell actually died a month after that. It was the last concert of Zell's life. There's an incredible book called The Cleveland Orchestra Story that was written by one of the critics in Cleveland for a year. I've read it cover to cover 2 or 3 times. But anyways, they played a concert in Anchorage, Alaska. And there's a great picture of Zell with this incredibly sour face standing with his wife on stage talking to John Mack. And Ron Bishop, the tuba players, standing there. He's kind of explaining the situation. He said the entire brass section got inebriated on the plane from Tokyo to Anchorage, and they weren't going to be able to do the Strauss program. So they were going to have to switch the program to all classical music or something.
Oh, my gosh.
Max standing there, you could see the look in his face like, I don't need this,
Wow.
But after Anchorage, they flew to Rochester, and at the end of the tour, they played this amazing concert. And I remember Myron Bloom played Pavane for a Dead Princess, but Zell did not conduct it. It was Boulez.
Wow.
Because that was amazing. And then, of course, he stood in with Leinsdorf after Zell.
Well, that's a perfect segue, because one of my favorite questions to ask all these artists is, what was a concert that you were in and a concert that you were at, different ones, where the magic, that electricity that happens in so few instances where you can either feel it as you're playing and you can feel the audience, or as a listener where it created an impression upon you for your life. If you can remember a couple of those examples where it just takes your breath away and you try and relay that to your students, that's really what we're here for.
That's a great question. I think about that all the time, actually. The first one was when I was in 8th grade. I heard the Michigan Band with Donald Cinta playing saxophone. And that's when I turned to my father. I said, this is what I want to do with my life.
Amazing.
And I remember he played Horace Staccato. The Didn't You arrangement Heifetz played. My dad was a violinist and a great countess design engineer, but he played tons of recordings for me. He brought me on piano concertos and scores. But that was the first concert.
That's it.
I heard it at Amherst High School, and all the clarinets stood up and did the last movement of the Weber 2, all by memory. That was a big thing Ravelli did, and Ravelli was amazing. And he was a violinist and perfect for a band conductor. I mean, he knew music. And I was talking to Fred Ormond about that recently when he was in Rochester. I was asking him about Ravelli, and he would say, "Sir, Dr. Ravelli, what did you play?" And he, "Oh, it doesn't matter what you play." And finally he said, "I played the Mendelssohn Concerto. That was the last figure I went out." But the other concert I was in there, when I came back to Rochester and I played, we had a conductor, Jerzy Semkov, who conducted. He never was a music director. He wasn't into that, but he conducted St. Louis and many guest appearances. I missed Brahms 1, but I did all the other ones with him. But we did Brahms 4 with him, and I think that was, as a clarinet, when you're on stage, you got so many things to think about that. But he created an atmosphere on the podium that, even when George Silfies passed away, he said one of the finest musicians. He listed Semkov as first. Wow. There was just a way he could, with his face, create an energy for Rossini or Brahms. And it just, he was from Poland. He lived in Paris. He was old school. He says, "We were running to the conservatoire to see the Robatis," and and he wore a cape backstage. And
amazing.
Merde, he would say, French,
Yeah.
And merde.
I love it.
And one time, he was playing. There's no doubt. I got to play a Cleveland tour in '90.
Wow.
And they were going on a tour, and their bass clarinetist Tom Peterson, the assistant E-flat, had knee operation. So they wanted somebody that had principal experience, that had played. And the only reason they thought of me is because I had studied with Ted and Frank. So, Zauder called me, who was the personnel manager. And he said,
You're like,
So I got to the first day I got there, it was Severance Hall, and it was getting ready for a tour. So they were still a Blossom, but they recorded Bruckner 7. I'm assistant. Okay, this is the first day.
Oh,
we just read through it. And I remember the first 15 minutes, I was like, I had sat in the hall, I'd never sat on it. The playing was so amazing, and the sound, and Ted Johnson, he always said, "You'll know where to put every note." And finally he leaned over to me and he said, "You can play a little louder if you want." I was so afraid of messing up. We did 75 takes of Bruckner 7. And it wasn't for mistakes. It was for Tempe. They had 3 conductors up in the dress circle. And I remember Frank, because there's a mistake in one of the descending. And of course they picked it up right away. The doctor said, "Didn't we do it that way?" The cousin Frank said, "Yeah." Well, they leave it. It's a mistake. But they had everything. And Doc Nani didn't have to worry about it. He just made music.
Yes.
And then Yakiel Ling and these other were up there, and it was, it's like...
So special.
You're slapping your face. And everyone in that orchestra played as Mr. Franz, I can't pronounce his last Mr. with the umlaut, but he said, of all the orchestras, it's chamber music. They really...
Yeah.
I remember
they're all listening.
Yeah.
Everybody.
You didn't have to play any louder than you would in a practice room. Yeah, that's it.
That's amazing.
But the thing that amazed me about Cleveland was the sustaining of the air through all the notes. You hear that from all your teachers, the notes right on the end. And they all said it.
Yeah.
But
they actually did it.
Yeah. Well, I always tell my students, don't listen to clarinet players. Maybe Dave Schifrin, Sabine Meyer, or somebody from musical, but you should piano concerto, string music, singers.
Exactly.
And you
know the whole repertoire. It makes it so much more applicable. You know what to do then.
But a lot of the kids today come in with not a lot of technical support that the older generation. That thing of Marcellus talking about kids practicing in the back room of getting the fingers working. And when I coach these kids, they've been through this music now for almost a week and they're going to play a concert Sunday, but they're getting better every day. Yeah. But the best prepared kids I've ever heard technically are from Texas. And I probably the band program because they have to do etudes and I'm not saying other people don't. I know you do because of your training, but kids come to Eastman. What French piece have you done? Oh, Debussy. Where I played at Bonad's almost entire 16 grand. I mean,
oh yes.
Pine would never listen to this stuff. When I went to him, he says, "No, you did it on your own." Of course, you listen to recordings, but I did Messerschmitt. I didn't do the Roubaud. I did the Mas d'Alon. I did Fancy Oriental. I hated the Marty. I couldn't do the Marty. But I did all those a lot. Yeah. And I bet I had 12 6A ratings. I mean, I did 2 solos a year to get
the fingers going.
Yeah. Yep. And now it's a major operation to get kids to play the first page of the Messager.
Yes.
I mean,
you're so right.
It's so hard. But when you go through 3 volumes of Longinus,
you can't not. Yeah. You're ready to rock.
The left-hand study, the Opperman studies are great.
Yes.
The Vade Makeup.
Yes. What do you say to your kids as you send them out as far as the entrepreneurial effort and the need to kind of stick up for yourself, and how do you approach auditions? What are some of your thoughts on that?
You're right. The entrepreneurial, you hit the nail on the head, and that's why Eastman's come up with this arts leadership program, where I have students now. Jennifer Bartleman, CEO. Yeah, I mean, she's CEO of the Atlanta Symphony, and she started with Laura Ardan at Emory, and we offer our students. I'm kind of coming in the back door here. We offer the students by the time they're a junior options to look at going into, like one of the violinists in the orchestra got an MBA. He does taxes for musicians. We have lecturers come in and do things on writing. I have students that have gone to New York and started their own music entrepreneurial and they've moved on to other things. I've got kids working for, what's that program you apply for to go to Europe?
The Fulbrights?
Thank you.
Yeah.
You can tell I didn't get an advanced degree. And anyways, I have a girl that went over there on a Fulbright to England, and now she's working for them. So
cool.
We know that, I mean, my passion as yours has been to play the clarinet and teach it. And I make no bones about the fact that I could teach a general music class or a class on musicianship, but I couldn't teach a theory class or a musicology class because I'm not qualified.
But for you to get to go to the school, be part of the heritage, and then now you get to continue the heritage. How amazing to continue your own teacher's heritage in your own way, because he made sure that you all had your own voices. That's so fast. It's amazing. It's a beautiful full circle.
Yeah.
And now you've had all these awesome years so far of all kinds of students. Yeah,
it's very intimidating to work with talented, because you don't want, sometimes the best students you have, you don't want to mess it up. It's like Hasty said, in the 50s, I didn't have to say too much. I mean, everybody was so incredibly self-motivated. And
Thank you so much for today.
You kidding?
That was so special. Thanks for listening to Inside the Notes. I'm your host, Erica Block. Be sure to check the Inside the Notes Facebook page for details on our next guest.